The inspiration behind the book, unfortunately, was the passing of my father about 2 years ago. He passed away, and after that happened, I was going through a very difficult time, and I started writing down stories of times that we spent together. And what I realized was that a lot of these stories related to food, not necessarily the cookery of food, but how he used food to teach what I was calling life lessons. And as I got further and further into these stories, I realized that there was this echoing sort of statement that was resonating in each of them, and it was how he used these experiences to plant the seed, and that seed bore fruit later on in life. And I really thought that that message of spending time with family and friends and using food as a vehicle to spend that time would be an interesting point to try and get across in a cookbook. So I put together a sequence of short stories that preface each one of the chapters, and each one of those stories relate to actual occurrences that happened in my life with my family and my father in particular. And the recipes that follow basically draw from the inspiration of the story. The title of the cookbook is How to Roast a Lamb, and lamb is obviously a very important part of the Greek culinary experience. There really isn't many other animals in Greece. It's a very mountainous region, and typically what you would find is lamb and goats on menus when you're talking about meat. The interesting thing about the book is that although it has a lot of lamb recipes and a lot of stories that revolve around lamb, because we did a lot of cooking and lamb at the house growing up as a child, the title really relates to a specific story that occurred probably when I was about 11 years old, when my father actually brought a live lamb and a live goat back to our suburban house in Long Island. And I befriended them, and the story goes on to say that ultimately it came to Sunday Easter, and we went outside, and it unfortunately got to the point where we actually slaughtered these lambs. And the story goes on really to say that there was a lesson that was taught after the occurrence, which was rather violent, and I was very upset about it. My father took me and put me on his lap and said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, you just killed my friends. They were something that I grew to love in the week that they had been running around in our backyard." And he said to me, "Well, I want you to remember these animals' death. I want you to understand the suffering that this animal had to have for Mommy to cook the food that we eat. And remember that every time we eat something, that something had to give its life, and that we should pay it respect by honoring it and eating the food that it's giving us in the life that it lost for it." And it became a very significant part of my growth as not only a chef, but also a man.